Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Here's an interesting story about an incident in line at the grocery store. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. In line at the grocery store. So this happened to my mother. A few years ago, she was at a busy grocery store. She had about a third of a cart. Lady, I'll call her AW for awesome woman, in front of her had a full cart. No, this was a normal lane, not an express one. Some idiotic woman, IW for short, cut in front of AW. AW, what do you think you're doing? IW, I only have a few things. I'm in a rush. AW, I don't care. There's a line. Cue cat butt face. IW, I shouldn't have to wait behind two bigger orders for a few things. AW, get in the back of the line. IW goes to the back of the line within hearing range. AW turns to my mom. AW, sweetie, you have less than me. Why don't you go ahead of me? Mom, I don't. AW, oh no, honey, you're fine. Giggles. I would have let her go ahead if she would have just asked instead of cutting in like an entitled bee. The hero every grocery store needs. And our next story. I'm out of here? Okay. Around 2007 to 2008, I was in the process of changing my full-time job, retail to banking. I also had a part-time job in a village pub. Every weekend, we would have live music acts on. Some were good, others not so much. This story relates to probably the best band we had play. Bit of a setup. The landlord of the pub had recently acquired another well-established pub in another nearby village. This pub was different. It had a restaurant and rooms for hire. He was an all-right kind of guy, likable but hard-nosed if it came to it. He would help anyone if he could do it, but with his business, it was his way or the highway. He also had fingers in a lot of pies. This was from the pubs he had to creating awards for dog shows. In the pub he acquired, the staff had a uniform, purchased by the previous owner before he sold. In our pub, we wore jeans and drinks company branded t-shirts, thanks Stella, Carling, Smirnoff, etc. Some of the other pub staff came to my pub to help, as the landlord had decided our quaint little watering hole should start doing more food options than just crisps and peanuts. We had a new kitchen fitted and a menu drawn up. Rumors went about that we would be getting a uniform so that we could fit in with the new restaurant feel of the pub. The issue we found, myself and the two barmaids, was that we did our own cleaning after a shift, whereas the other pub had a professional cleaning crew come in every weekend. Our cleaning entailed bleach mopping the floors as well as the toilets. We didn't care usually, part of the job and all that jazz, because the landlord sourced us seemingly endless supplies of t-shirts, which could result and cheaply be replaced. Did I mention that we found out that the uniform would have to be supplied by ourselves? The uniform, black suits for us men, white shirts and black ties, dress shoes, obviously. Ladies, black shirts, white blouses. My problem was that the 4 suits that I owned were all high-end and weren't cheap. I asked if we were seriously being asked to wear these kinds of things and to supply them ourselves. We were. He didn't mention when this would be starting, but that it would be soon. I asked if he could supply even a very cheap pair of black trousers and a shirt due to the cleaning we would still have to do at the end of our shift. Flat out, no. I had a week's holiday booked, so I left it in his hands to come up with a solution whilst I was away. I came back on the Friday night, and the band we had on had already arrived early to set up, as is normal. People had already started to arrive, as this group overlooked by so many people would turn up to hear them sound check and practice. I turned up in jeans and a t-shirt to see the 2 barmaids in black skirts, etc. Nobody had told me that the uniform change had been instigated. The landlord came through the bar and asked where my suit was. I said I hadn't been informed and still wouldn't have worn it if I was going to be using bleach while wearing it. This is where the hard-nosed side came out. He said you can go home and change, or you can hand in your till keys and leave. So, I handed him my full key, apologized to the 2 barmaids for leaving them in the lurch, got my coat, and went home. And good later, I was back in the pub, but this time with a few mates, listening to an awesome night of rock cover versions of classic feel-good songs. The best part was seeing the landlord behind the bar trying to cope with a 40-foot bar, 3 customers deep. He was supposed to have been taking his wife and daughter out to a new restaurant in the next big town that had opened. He had to cancel his plans and work. I felt sorry for the ladies I left there to work, but I did get a huge kick out of seeing him working. I stayed until closing time. Then, as they started to clean, I left. Cherry on top, when I came back in, I was wearing one of my suits. I loved that job, and as it turns out, I left at the right time. He sold that pub within a year, his business tanked. Our village, as it turns out, did not want a restaurant. They were quite happy with their quaint little out-of-the-way watering hole, just as it was. And our last story. Cheaters go to jail. Little background before I start. My mom had met my stepdad when I was 9 years old, and at the time of this story, I was 25. They'd been living together pretty much the whole time, and during the story, I was living at home, although I worked at sea, so I was barely there. This person was, for all intents and purposes, my dad. As a background note that was relevant to this story, he'd been caught previously texting another woman who was my mom's workmate and had been caught ringing sex lines, weird, and blamed it on 13-year-old me. They split up when he was caught texting for a while, and when they got back together, I did have words with him, but other than that, I stay out of their business. The start. Shortly after returning home from sea, I noticed some tension between my parents. Something wasn't right, but it wasn't any of my business, and I did my best to keep myself from being a spark that blew up any arguments. It was icy. Anyway, one morning, crap hit the fan. It was crazy, and I stayed way out of it while they had a shouting match and then disappeared to work. This was a big one, and they'd called it quits. I was at home when my dad came home to pick up his stuff, and he moved out to his sister's. He was pretty pleasant, said goodbye, and I've only seen him once since. The truth. Slowly, I learned the truth and put things together myself. My good old stepdad was cheating. Not only was he cheating, but she was pregnant, and she had a husband. It was a cluster F. His sister had covered it, friends had covered it. They let my mother babysit while they were on nights out by disguising themselves as work nights. I've always been able to kick his butt, but now I wanted to, and he knew it. He stayed the F away. The one time I did see him, since I vowed to destroy everything he cared for, it was cheesy, but I felt badass. The revenge. This was a multi-pronged attack. I was going nuclear with this crap, and I had the time to do it. Step one was to take out the sister. I hated that bee anyway, so this was going to be a pleasure. Ever since giving birth to her child, she'd been out of work, but recently set up her own business using the inheritance from her parents. Inheritance she didn't declare while claiming benefits, and how my dad helped her by using his bank account as her safe haven. A quick call to the Department of Work and Pensions, and she was done. I had so much evidence. She was caught and audited, then sentenced to committing fraud and made to wear an ankle monitor. No more secret nights out, B. Enjoy paying it back. Edit, I have no idea why she got an ankle monitor, but it was about $15,000 in fraudulent money. I then got in touch with the local paper to let them know of the link between this petty criminal and her brand new store. One full page later, and her stupid face was everywhere because she'd been in an editorial when she first opened it about how hard a working mother she was. Facebook went nuts, and I relaxed for a little. I wanted to see how far the damage spread before I moved on to phase 2. Step 2 turned out to be a juicy finale. Stepdad has been a low-key piece of crap for years. He regularly allowed people to steal from his job for years in exchange for backhanders until he got greedy, and it was time to nail his balls to the wall. Recently in our house, we had a living room renovation which cost thousands. Some of that juicy inheritance money, thanks Dad, and part of that was a log-burning stove. This turned out to be stolen from his workplace. I couldn't prove his guilt for his thefts until he left behind a huge effing metal piece of evidence in the living room. Showtime. I called his company and asked them about problems with the stove and that my dad had acquired it using his staff discount, but we weren't in contact anymore. He asked for the serial number, which I provided, and oh no, it was stolen. I'm shocked and appalled, sir. If that's the case, I'd be more than happy to pay for this, but we thought it had been bought. This is where the nuclear bomb hit. Police were called, more crimes were discovered, he was arrested and sacked. Turns out he'd stolen copper wiring from one of their buildings. He'd stolen more than one stove and had regularly been caught taking bribes on camera. Game over, D-head. The conclusion. He and his sister are the only family left. They only have each other, and I managed to give them both a criminal record. Her business is somehow still going, but I'm working on that, and he lost his job with a child on the way and 2 new stepchildren. He had to sell his beloved car and had been shunned by large portions of the community. He's still doing court, so hopefully a nice New Year present is in order, but I'm led to believe it's all but guaranteed a jail sentence. She doesn't have a tag anymore, but that store's next on the list. On the other hand, my mom is fine about the karma that she doesn't know I had anything to do with. He's been helping with mortgage payments for 16 years while gaining nothing back. He paid for renovations to the house she lives in, and she has his TV on the wall and the car he bought her on the drive. This Christmas, I'll be home from sea, and we shall enjoy not having them around. Oh, and his girlfriend got hit by a car. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.